and gentlemen, go for a wild, wild ride with the Watusi cats. But beware, the sweetest kittens have the sharpest claws. For your own safety, see faster, Pussycat. Kill. Wild women, wild wheels. Race the fastest pussycats, and they'll beat you to death. Superwoman, belted, buckled, and booted.
You're wasting yourself on this kid and hanging this up for nothing.
For nothing? It's got nothing to do with the money. She is the money.
Jack and Jill, they make the mafia look like brownies.
Hey, he's a big one, ain't he? Got muscles all the way to his ears.
Yeah. 10% of your action be enough for anyone.
Too much for one man to handle. And again, you never can tell.
You girls a bunch of nudists, or you just short of clothes?
Right now, you're first on my list. And I always try to be top. You've only got one channel. And your channel's busy tuning in outside. You really should be AM and FM. So who do I get to take care of? The muscle man? You got 2 of everything. And some left over. You did want. You wanted big. Breast or thigh, darling?
Why don't you take one of each, son? They both look tender. He's got a big motor to feed.
I'll give you heaps it is. My motor never runs out, baby.
Sit down. That's right.
You were too rough the last time.
All right, here's how it works. Everybody's got to go.
You name it, we've got it. Faster Pussycat kills 2, delivers tons more than the opposition. Unladylike karate chops, ungentlemanly haymakers, spirited gymnastics, corrective table etiquette, sandbox jousting, or a muscle-bound cat wrestling with a roaring sports car that's intent upon squashing him like a grape. Bizarre kidney and chassis-rattling chases, and for the first time on the screen, a hay-making, belly-busting, karate-chopping, judo-flipping fight to end them all. Superwoman against man. The prize, life itself. Slashing, tackling, gouging, hacking, flipping, belting, smashing, and blasting. Muscle to muscle, bone to bone. For an incredible evening's entertainment, a film so totally satisfying, see Russ Meyer's Faster Pussycat. Kill.
Destination Nightmare, the B-Movie Podcast.
The narration at the beginning of this movie, Faster Pussycat Kill, was very, the whole dialogue is so, over the top. It's kind of funny, actually,
Yeah.
Like a velvet glove covered in, like an iron glove covered in velvet or whatever, These like strained metaphors that are kind of fun, actually,
Yeah.
So. Fun movie.
Yeah, it was fun. It's one of those kind of movies that's made to scare the straights.
Is it? Have you seen it before?
No, I've never seen it. I've heard about this for forever.
Sure, 65.
And I've seen, pictures of what's her name,
Tora Satana,
and Haji,
Laurie Williams,
and
Susan Bernard.
Yeah, but she's normal size, but mostly to Tora, and and Russ Myers has he got more pornographic as he went along. So
for sure. Yeah.
I thought this was more. Was going to be more
pornographic.
Pornographic than it was.
Well, apparently, from what I read, he had done a movie called Motorcycle, about a motorcycle gang, and he said, well, the next movie is going to be a girl gang. So that was the premise of this movie. The last movie did good. Apparently, this one didn't when it was released, so it's become like a cult movie and whatever, but it didn't do as good, so I think he figured out, okay, well, the next one's going to have a lot of boobs in it. I think I forgot what the next one after this is. Probably like one of those Mudhoney ones, or it's funny, like Faster Pussycat Kill band named themselves Mudhoney. A band named themselves Mudhoney. I don't know if there might be a band called the Ultra Vixens. I don't know, or
I think there are, yeah.
So there you go. All these are, I just remember like Russ Meyer being like, back in the day, just and in a sense it is just a kind of a big boob fetishist who made movies or whatever, you know what I mean?
And I remember seeing all the movie ads in the Daily News up in New York.
Oh, you did, huh? Wow.
Yeah, they would show stuff at Times Square when it was. They would show they had peep shows and all that stuff,
yeah.
and they played dirty movies. They would advertise them in the paper. So I remember. Super Vixen, right? Super Vixens was one.
Super Vixen, yeah.
I remember that one, the girl in the ponytails, and that appeared all the time. And there are a couple of them. It looks like Mudhoney and Motor Psycho were also done in '65.
Boy, he was cranking them out, man.
Yeah.
He was an army photographer who I guess decided that after Playboy magazine, that was the life for him, and I think he photographed some playmates for Playboy. Really? And his wife Eve Meyer, she was a hottie too. I think she became kind of like his editor and did a lot of stuff for him. She passed away, so I think in the '60s, but
66 it says.
Yeah, but he went and did the movies, and I'm not sure if it was him or Herschel Gordon Lewis invented what was called the nudie cutie, which is like some silly comedy where like some goofy guy would be walking around and, oh look, there's a hole in the fence, let me look inside, and he looks through it and these hot babes are sunbathing, that kind of crap or whatever, so that or the ones about nudist camps, playthings in the sun, or nude on the moon, or the monster and the stripper. I don't know. Something weird used to have all of those, and I've seen some of them, and they're all pretty bad.
I remember seeing Beyond the Valley of the Doll.
Oh, I almost saw that when I was a kid.
That was a weird one. That was supposed to be a sequel to Valley of the Dolls.
Yeah, right.
And it was a mess of a movie. And at the end, I remember at the end, somebody gets beheaded, and there's some big, at a party, and there's some big fight scene going on. You see the head bouncing across the floor. I'm looking at this going, the hell is this I'm watching?
You know who wrote that movie?
Yeah, Roger Ebert.
Roger Ebert. And then he had the nerve to criticize other movies,
Right.
I mean, I love Beyond the Valley of the Doll, but it's not a great movie.
No, it's not a great movie. But he pranced around like that was like Gone with the Wind or something. Like it was some great movie. It's like, ew, man.
When I was a kid, my parents thought it was a sequel to Valley of the Dolls, and they were going to go see it, but then they couldn't get tickets. And it would take me, and they ended up like going somewhere else or whatever. And I'm like, and then they saw it, and they went, "Oh wow, I'm glad you didn't see that." Not that it's that bad, It was kind of tame when I saw it, But still, it was still. I guess it was X-rated or something. I don't know. But
yeah. Well, back then, like different mindset. What's that movie with Malcolm McDowell?
Clockwork Orange.
Yeah, when Clockwork Orange first came out, that had an X rating because of violence.
Yeah, and then rape and all sorts of things like that. Yeah.
So that's I still remember the old one where they had M for mature
audiences.
Then they changed it.
I even remember like seeing posters from like some of those 1960s Christopher Lee Dracula movies and rated G. Really? I was
wow.
Like, all the blood and all the impaling and all the boobage and all that. Rated G for...
Wow.
Yeah, it was weird. The rating system was weird, and then
it
got even weirder after, then it became X, and then it became Triple X, which isn't part of anything. It was just made up by pornographers to differentiate. Well, hell, what's the one? Midnight Cowboy was X-rated.
Yeah, that's true, too, because of
that one gay scene in it.
Yeah.
That was the scene that made it. I tried watching that about 2 years ago on Turner Classic, and it was just a depressing movie. I couldn't get through it. It was just like a drag.
It is depressing, and it's one of those. There's certain movies that you say, if you can say you've watched it, then I don't know. It's like a feather in your cap or something. It's like the Godfather. Everybody praises the God. I tried to watch it. I can't.
I saw it when I was a kid in the theater. So
really,
I know. My friends love those movies, and I'm just kind of like,
yeah,
all right.
Yeah, it was just all right. I liked it. There was another one with Ray Liotta.
Goodfellas.
Goodfellas. That I liked. That was a much
That was
better
okay.
movie.
I saw that in the theater too. That was okay.
Yeah, but the Godfather movies, oh man, long and boring.
It had some good scenes in it, but yeah. You know what's funny about the 70s? When you read about them, it sounds like it was a real drag, but I lived through them and I thought they was cool. It's funny how when you read about it, war and gas lines and all this, because I guess since I wasn't an adult, that was cool with me, man. I was like the movies and the comics and the monster magazines. I have no problem with the 70s, but apparently from what I read from people that are writing about it, it was a horrible time. I don't know. I'm starting to, wonder about the history of history. You know what I mean? Whoever writes it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, whoever's in power and wants to put their slant on it. But yeah, I mean, the 60s, that's when progressive rock started.
Well, the 70s.
The 70s, rather. And
FM radio, prog rock, monster magazine. It was the end of an era for the original horror guys, but they were still around through the 77 or whatever. The music was really cool. It started getting a little I mean, it was definitely better in the earlier 70s and the late 60s, but I thought it was great.
A lot of cable started, so a lot of cable channels were experimental, and you'd see
all the creature feature shows were on.
Yeah.
Yeah, you still had like newsstands where you can get all your comics and all your magazines, and department stores sold cool records. I would go to whatever department store, and they had like all Yes albums and Genesis and all that. So I don't know. I find them, whoever's writing about how bad they were, I don't think either they weren't there, or they're just kind of like reading something from somebody and coming up with all this. Because, you're right, there was the war, but it was ending. There was Nixon, whatever. There was, but I don't know. There was a lot of good going on too.
I agree. There's a lot of good stuff.
There was economical problems. When aren't there? There was a gas shortage. Okay, that was in 70, whatever, 6. Yeah, that lasted a month or so. Whatever. I don't know. I mean, today seems like a lot shittier than back then was. But then again, I was a kid. So maybe when you're a kid, you're looking through rose-colored glasses.
Maybe you don't have the same kind of responsibility. I don't know, though. I mean, it did seem...
The movies, the music, the comics, and the art just sure seemed a lot better.
It seemed like there was less control of a big industry. Yeah. I mean, music... The music companies and the record companies were starting to suck up all the talent and stuff, but you still had people who were independent and do their own things and starting their own music.
Oh and you looked, and the radio and the television, the 3 channels that we had, they showed you the best of the best. So everybody really kind of got into the best of the best, and you actually read the magazines like whatever Cream or Rolling Stones and actually had reviews, and they were actually like bands that were coming out that were really good, and if you couldn't hear them on the radio, you could read about it. I mean, if you had a few bucks, you could test it out or check it out or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think there's a fallacy with people writing about how bad. I mean, the movies were kind of a downer. A lot of them had downer endings. I mean, that was just kind of a reflection of some whatever mentality about the war or whatever. But
that though was a lot of like mainstream movies that I didn't really care about anyway.
Yeah.
Like the monster movies. Well, the monsters always.
Yeah, they always got it in the end usually.
Yeah, so in the horror movies and stuff, and Hammer had become big.
They had reached their peak in the '60s. They were going downhill a little bit, but not enough to make it seem like they were still doing like Dracula movies.
Yeah.
But they were on the downs. But so was classic horror. It was going to be replaced by zombie and exorcist movies and all that. It's so funny to me that the zombie gimmick, whatever you want to call it, is so big now, because I always thought it was just kind of like just another one of the topics for horror movies or whatever, but they just kind of stuck with that. And it's like, I mean, there's people that say, well, the zombie movies are popular when times are tough, and the vampire movies are around when one party wins, and the werewolf movies are around when another party wins. I don't know. I don't follow any of those any of that logic, but it's just weird to me.
Back in the 70s, vampires weren't young teenagers.
No, they weren't. They were old guys that were, big and mean and scary. Not like mopey millennials with around.
And the zombies were slow moving, and
I tell you, those kids today with their crappy movies and crappy comics and crappy music, they don't know what the hell.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people on YouTube that have young people, like in their early 20s, that have like a 60s nostalgia, and they're very well read about things, and they're very but what they said, but one young woman was saying, it was like, the thing about like, say us and the newer generations is, it seemed like when I'm listening to these 60s records and I'm watching movies and I'm reading about it, there seemed to be a sense of optimism. She said, ever since she was born, they've never felt a sense of optimism, which is really depressing as F when you hear about it. So that's why they're kind of like going back to, what they thought maybe the 60s were, but I don't know what to tell you, but...
Well, now everybody's on YouTube. Everybody's a YouTube star. They go on.
Oh yeah.
They see the friggin' Kardashians and their train wreck of a life, so they think that's how you have to live to get famous and be popular, and it's like, ugh. It's
funny, the quote of less is more, I think it applies to less television, less internet, less, all that, but I mean, whatever, I mean, things have a way of settling themselves and changing or whatever, but getting back to what we should be talking about, which is today's movie. Even though that was a pretty good conversation we had there.
Yeah.
The 60s were a different time than the 70s. The 60s were kind of became colorful and optimism, but this movie is kind of like down and dirty and black and white and gritty, and kind of like everybody in this movie's got a storyline, and
it's all unpleasant, grim.
For the most part, yeah.
Storyline, yeah.
It's a pretty advanced movie for back then, because it very easily could have been made today, and it would feel right in place or whatever. You know what I mean? It's just like.
Well, except whenever anything happened, they would run to their phones and make a TikTok
take a picture
video
of it or something.
instead of doing violence.
Yeah, this movie was definitely about violence. Especially Tura Satana. She was a real piece of work in this movie, man.
I think in real life she was too. I was reading a little bit about her life, and she had guys rape her, and then when she was like a teenager, and then she learned martial arts and went back and got vengeance on all of them.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, she claims that she showed Elvis Presley the ropes, in the sack. She was like one of his early girlfriends or something.
Yeah,
she claims.
I wouldn't doubt it if it's true.
I hope she didn't karate chop him or something. She was throwing karate chops in this, but I'm sure she was pulling her punches maybe or whatever. But she was
and real karate too, not that TV or movie karate where the guy just goes, yeah. Remember there was a time when, I don't know, anytime you're watching a movie or a TV show and there was a fight, one guy would always like know karate, and he always stand there with like one hand pointing. It's like two straight hands, one pointing up, one pointing sideways, and it got so comical after a little while.
Yeah, I'm getting back to what we were talking about. If she can even remember, I'm going to ask my mom, who's 92, were the 70s that bad? And I'm sure she's going to say no. So whatever. Getting back to that, but at any rate, so this movie starts out with like the three girls, the three crazy girls, Tura, Haji was like, she sounded like she was Italian.
Yeah.
She was like, hey, what's the matter with you? And then the other one, Billy or Lori Williams was her name, who didn't think she was going to get the part because her boobs weren't big enough, but then she said she padded her bra and Russ let her do the movie. Oh God. Yeah, they're doing the striptease. Actually, there's a video by the Cramps, and they kind of imitate this girl's dancing at the beginning or whatever. So they're go-go dancing, and some guys in the audience are like, take it off.
Hurry, faster. I don't know why faster, but faster. And they're all doing the weird bending backwards and doing the weird thing with the arms.
They're doing the 60s go-go chick deal or whatever.
Yeah, like you'd see on Laughing or something.
Oh, yeah, that's right, with Judy Carn and Goldie Hawn and all that. That's another goofball show.
Oh, God.
So I guess after that title, it cuts to like the three girls, and they're like racing in the desert. And all of a sudden, like one of them, the blonde, hey, I want to go in the water,
Yeah, so she goes off.
They're very impulsive, these gals.
Yes.
And then Torres, who is the leader, sends Haji to go get her, and they have a big old cat fight in the water, pulling hair and shit like that, Then Tura breaks it up, and then they decide that Tura's going to show them who's what. And they're going to have a chicken. They race for chicken, right? And they go after each other to see who's going to be like the chicken. And they chicken out, and Tora wins. He goes, see, I told you, I'm the boss here. So I was like, okay, whatever. They're out in the desert or something like that, So then all of a sudden, out of the blue, a couple pulls up, a young guy and his girlfriend, and they just wanted to do time trials or something. The guy, I forgot what his name was, but the girl is Susan Bernard. She was only like 16 when she made this movie.
Wow, was she really?
She was the daughter of a famous glamour photographer, Bernard of Hollywood, I think was the name. And she was also posed in Playboy like a year later.
Oh, no kidding. Bernard of Hollywood. I remember hearing about him. Yeah, he did all those glamour.
That's his daughter.
Wow.
So, she was only like 16 or something when she did this movie. And then, like I said, when she was 17, she posed in Playboy or whatever, So they show up, and they're real like, ha, 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 hey, I just did a time trial. She's really happy and peppy and,
talking a mile a minute. I'm using up all the oxygen.
Right. So like the guy, they asked the boyfriend, what are you doing here? He goes, oh, I'm doing time trials for, and then Tora's like laughing at him, go, time trial? You mean you're racing against the clock and not real people? And he's like, well, yeah, I'm doing it because I want to see how fast my car is. And she challenges him to a race or whatever, or they all race against him to see who's the fastest or whatever, something along those lines. Yeah. So they're all going around in circle, and he beats them all except Tura catches up to him, and then like when she senses that she's losing, she runs him off the road or something like that, and she's like laughing. He couldn't do it, and the girl's like, oh, I hope he's not hurt or whatever, you know. So whatchamacallit, Tora goes over there to the guy, and then they start fighting or something, right?
Yeah, he's like, what are you doing? And she, I don't know, she's like, well, you know, what are you, a wimp, or, you know? And then, yeah, so they start fighting. And she kicks his ass.
She kicks his ass, and then he's like, he's down on the ground, and she like, see, look, your boyfriend, huh? He's a real wimp. And the guy like gets up and he smacks Tora down, and then she goes after him, and she like breaks his neck or his back or something. She did some move.
Yeah, she's doing the karate chop, and then he's like laying down. So she, face down, she grabs both of his arms and pulls back while she like steps on his neck. I don't know if that would break your neck, but
or your back. Yeah, I don't know.
Although, knowing some people who have bad backs, they probably go, "Oh man, that feels good."
Yeah, right. Like chiropractor or whatever. So like, dude's dead. So they like, girl's like hysterical. So they like kidnap her. They take her and they kidnap her, and they go, well, we'll figure out what to do with her later or whatever. You know, we can't. You know, and the other two are kind of like, holy shit, we didn't.
Yeah, we didn't buy into this.
Yeah, we didn't buy into this crap. You know, we didn't think you were that psycho, Tora. You know what I mean? So they take her and they drug her or something. Yeah. She's in the car sitting there, and they had to stop at a gas station to get gas, obviously, because they're in the desert, and there's some goofball attendant like there who's like all like bumping.
It's like Goober from from the Andy Griffith Show.
And Tora's like effing with him, you know. He's like, well, where's the gas pump? She goes, it's in the front, you idiot. And he's like, oh, yep. So he can't get it open, so she's like laughing. She pushes the button and it opens or whatever, you know. So they're all like yapping or whatever, and he's asking about the girl, and she's sleeping or whatever, you know, blah blah blah. So and after they leave, he's like, oh, come back, you forgot your stamps.
Yeah,
know, crap like that.
Yeah, the green stamps.
And he goes, oh well, I'll keep them then, and after 400 more books, I'll be able to buy this station. Crap like that. Oh, and when they're doing that, the crippled guy and his muscle son show up, don't they, or something like that?
Yeah, they're coming out of I think because the gas station also had like a store in it. So that, or they were there for some reason. So you see the muscle son and carrying the father to the truck, and the blonde Billy, she goes, ooh, he's hot looking. Ooh.
Yeah.
And that's when the gas station attendant starts telling him about how the son's an imbecile or feeble-minded, and the father was hurt in a train accident trying to save a girl, and he got a big settlement of money. And, you know, that's when Tora hatches a plan to rob him.
Yeah, she wants to rob him and then get rid of the girl after that or something.
Yeah,
like that.
Yeah, because of, you know, the girl's a witness.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. So they go, the guys, the father and the son leave, and Tora and the girls take the back route and cut the fence on the ranch of the guy. And then they kind of like sneak in, and then the old man confronts them and says, what the hell are you guys doing? What women are doing here? So we just need water.
Right.
You know, we'll be, and they go out to like a Petticoat Junction water tower, and they,
yeah. And then,
it's just like Petticoat Junction. And Lori Williams, the blonde, starts, you know.
Yeah, she gets all naked. She starts.
There's no nudity in this movie.
No.
By the way, so.
No, so
just a lot of good ass shots and.
Yeah. So she showers, and then is that when the what's her name wakes up?
Girl, Susan Bernard, the young girl,
and Tora says, you know, don't say anything, you won't get hurt. And Billy's and the girl's like, oh, I just want to go home. I won't tell anybody anything.
And then the old man in the wheelchair takes a takes a liking to her.
Yeah, he takes a big liking to her.
Yeah.
And
And Tura gives him a BS story about the girl. I forgot what it was. It was like she was kidnapped, or they got to do something.
Well, she was with her boyfriend, and he died in a car accident, so she freaked out. And her family are high-profile politicians, and they're part of the same car club. So this, they asked the three girls to go out and find her and bring her back, and they want to do it on the down low so that doesn't get in the papers. And he's kind of suspicious, kind of not. He don't care though, because he's got the hots for
little Susan Bernard there.
Yeah.
So they so the guy ends up inviting the girls for lunch, before they take off or whatever, And Tura and Haji go somewhere, and they leave Lori Williams, the blonde, and Susan Bernard to stay back, and Lori Williams is supposed to take care of Susan Bernard or whatever.
Well, as they were eating lunch, Tura and the other son, there's two sons. The other son was small. They go off somewhere.
No. That was later on. I don't think we introduced to the other son yet, are we? Oh no, he comes in. The other son is the one who finds Susan Bernard running in the desert, isn't it?
Yeah, but he was there at.
Was he bringing in like groceries or something?
Yeah, he's bringing in groceries for lunch, and I think that's when we first meet him. That guy was on Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he played some low-level character that you saw every week. I don't know what his.
But before they go to lunch, the blonde chick is starts getting interested in the muscle man, and the old man starts talking to Susan Bernard about the girls. He's asking them what they what the deal is, what's their story or whatever, and she's kind of scared to anything. So they cut back to Lori Williams, who was kind of like getting into the muscle man guy.
Yeah, and you see him lifting weights.
And all of a sudden you hear the old man screaming, and the guess Susan Bernard knocked him down and took off into the desert to try to escape or whatever.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so that's when you see the second son. He's coming back.
That's it. She hitchhikes on the road, and he picks her up, and she tells him the story or whatever, and then it turns out that that's the second son.
Yeah, and he's like, "Whoa, this is where I live." She's like, "You're one of them." So he thinks she's nutsy cuckoo and freaking out.
She tells him that the other girls killed the boyfriend, and the whole 9 yards or whatever. So then they go back. She brings them back there or whatever, and the three are like, "Oh, where'd you find her?" or whatever. She was just running around. Story. She was running around the desert or whatever. So let's see. They go back to the ranch. The young son confronts the father about the BS story that they told them about the girl, because the girl is giving them another story.
Right.
And the father says, "Well, they told me that she was in a rich girl, and there was a car, the story you just told before." And he's like, "Well, so
he doesn't really care because he has the hots for her, and he's hoping to get her along."
Yeah.
And there was something he was talking to the feeble-minded, the muscle son, about apparently he did this before, because he says, "Oh, you know what we do with the girls and something." I don't know. There was some hint that the father had the son do something to the girls and kill them and bury them somewhere.
Yeah, there was something along those lines.
Yeah.
So then they Tura's plan with Haji and the other chick is to, get rid of all the people there and steal the money.
Right.
Because they know about now the money because of the guy. So that was their plan to begin with or whatever.
Yeah.
But, they all got screwed up with the girl escaping and blah, blah, blah or whatever. So
yeah.
They all have lunch, because the son brings in all the groceries, and they all start fighting and screaming. And you hear stories about oh, well, the muscle man's son, yeah, he was so big that he killed his mother. His mother died at birth, giving birth to him or whatever, and he came out. He came out, and then you hear the story what you were talking about why the old man's in a wheelchair because he was trying to save some girl and all that kind of stuff or whatever, And then Tora goes off with the normal son, and she starts to seduce him.
Yeah, they leave the table. They're making out because she's looking to find out where the money is.
And she leaves once again. She leaves Laurie Williams alone with Susan Bernard, and Laurie Williams gets drunk. And
I think Haji follows them because it turns out Haji has the hots for Tora.
Tora Satana, yeah, there's that going on too,
Yeah, so they leave the Laurie Williams with Susan Bernard. Laurie Williams is drinking and she passes out.
And Susan Bernard takes off again.
Right.
And then they all go out to find her. And then the old man and his muscle man son, they find her, and the old man sends her out to get Susan Bernard, and he grabs her, and she escapes, and he grabs her again. But when you think she's going to do something to her, he starts crying.
Yeah.
And he's telling her, I forgot, what was he crying about? Was he just feel guilty about hurting her?
I think so. He said, I can't do it, or...
It was like a Frankenstein-y thing, or something like that. So anyway, they leave with Susan Bernard, and then the normal son shows up, and he says, "What's going on here?" Because the father's out, sitting, lying on the floor, and blah blah blah, and he's like, no, the girl's here, we found her, and blah blah. And the guy goes, "Well, let's take her back." And then the father's like, "Well, I threw the keys away." So
yeah, I didn't understand that, like why, but.
So yeah, and then so the guy goes, "Well, we'll just walk back then." And the father's like, "Okay." And the father had the keys anyway.
Right.
And then Tora shows up, and she goes, "What's going on?" He goes, "Well, they left or whatever, So, they end up picking up the guy and the second son and Tora, and Susan Bernard and taking them back. Right. And then they hatch the plan where Tora now wants to kill everybody.
Right.
And then Laurie Williams, the blonde, is like, "Hey, I'm done."
Yeah, I'm done. I'm not in for this. And Tora keeps saying, you're an accessory, and you're going to get the, what you call it, the pill or something, implying that she's going to get the death penalty. And she's like, "Oh, I'm going to take my chances."
And blah 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 or whatever. So she's like, "Okay, go ahead and leave then. We don't care."
So she's, of course, walking away. And she gets the knife from Haji, who keeps the knife in her boot. Then she throws it, stabs and kills Laurie Williams. It hits her in the back, kills her. And then the old man and the son come back, and they see what happened. And the old man's like, "Oh, I got to get my shotgun." And then the muscle son gets out, and he sees he kind of liked Laurie because she
liked him.
Yeah, so he goes over, and he's looking at her, and he's all sad and stuff. And Haji comes over. Varla says, "Get the knife."
Yeah, right.
Kill the old man. So
because the evidence or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was Haji's knife.
Yeah. So Haji goes over and says, "Oh, can I have the knife?" And he goes, "Is this your knife?" And she's like, "No." So he takes the knife out, and he ends up stabbing and killing Haji.
Right.
And in the meantime, Tora sees the old guy in his wheelchair, and he's trying to get to his gun. So she runs him over with the car, and in doing so, knocks over the wheelchair.
And all the money was in the wheelchair.
That's where all the money was hidden. So then the muscle son, sees that, so he goes running over, and
she goes to run over the muscle guy.
She tries to run him over, and then he's like pushing back.
And like a long scene of Brain versus,
a Braun, yeah.
Yeah, the car versus the guy. Because she ran him over once, but he still got up. So she went to do it again, and he was able to break the car with his strength and blah blah blah. But he's still
he's injured, but he's alive.
Yeah.
So then she gets in the truck, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. She gets in the truck and goes driving into.
Because the other son takes off with Susan Bernard.
Yeah, they're walking to town or something to tell the sheriff all this. So she gets in the truck and is driving to town. So the second son, sees this and thinks it's the muscle son, his brother, and then he realizes it's Tora. So they're running and trying to avoid him. She tries to run him over, and then she gets out. And then they start having a fight. And then she's using her kung fu on him and stuff. And then
Susan Bernard's watching this, and she decides she gets in the truck.
Yeah, she finally wakes up, gets in the truck, and then
she runs Tora over.
Yeah, she runs Tora over. Tora sees her and tries to go for her. I think the second brother is sort of unconscious. She goes, and Susan Bernard hits her with the truck and knocks her out, and then you see her, she gets thrown back to where the second son is, and she looks over and she raises a fist to try and kill him, but she dies.
The end.
So
pretty much everybody got it in this movie except for the two, the second son and Susan Bernard or whatever, Did the muscle guy, did he end up dying after?
I think he was injured. I don't remember seeing him killed.
All right, yeah. So it was one of these it was kind of like the good people did kind of win, but it was just pretty much of a downer movie or whatever. But I guess this was the thing about this movie was and stuff like that. I mean, did these play in these didn't play in regular theaters, right? Were these?
Russ Meyer's, I don't think so. I think they were more what you would call art houses.
Yeah, and if you were going to see a Russ Meyer movie in an art house and you watched this, it was kind of well, I didn't see what I wanted to see,
Yeah, so...
it was more of an action movie than a TNA movie.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this played in, maybe it might have played in drive-ins.
Yeah, probably drive-in. Yeah, this seems more, because in a way, without the Russ Meyer name, if somebody said this was done by Roger Corman, you'd go, really? Yeah, okay, I can kind of see that.
But even with a title like Faster Pussycat Kill Kill, it's what is this about?
Yeah.
It's kind of it's not they saved Hitler's brain or Taste the Blood of Dracula or Dracula vs. Frankenstein. It's Fast Pussycat Kill Kill. It's what is that, a metaphor for something? I mean, I don't
know. Maybe. Well, I know Pussy used to call women Pussycat.
Yeah, and I also don't know if this movie would get trailers on local television, because of Russ Meyer or I don't know. It's a weird one. It didn't do well at the box office. Let's put it that way.
Well, maybe that's it, because it didn't have really a place to go. You wouldn't necessarily put this in a local theater.
Right.
Not gonna
at a drive-in, you would.
You drive-in, yeah.
But even if you were going to a drive-in to see sexier movies, you would probably be maybe disappointed in this.
Yeah.
Because there's not even one nude scene in it, or not even close.
You saw Laurie Williams' back. That's about it.
Yeah, I was okay.
Yeah, this seemed more like a biker.
Yeah, exactly.
Or one of those teenage movies where.
Yeah.
It's almost like what's happening to our youth today. That kind of.
Yeah, it's just a weird movie. That I guess the fact that it is weird and it can't be pigeonholed kind of makes it more interesting in a way, because it's kind of and the dialogue also is so metaphorically whatever that it's kind of it's kind of funny what they're saying. Some of the things they say are kind of funny. And the actors are all good. The photography was really nice. Some nice shots, some good action. Not boring.
No, not at all. No.
Fast paced for the most part. There's not really a real long, boring scene where they have to talk whatever for to do their ass or whatever. It's definitely a movie that's earned its cult status as a classic of that. And you're right. And I wonder. Well, it wasn't motorcycles, but these were like I don't know when the biker movie started, but I think it was like around this time, 65, 66.
Yeah, there was that big one, the Wild Ones with Marlon Brando.
That was in the 50s, yeah.
Right, that was in the 50s. So
and you had the juvenile delinquent movies.
Yeah, this might be more.
But these three were older than juvenile delinquents, so they looked like they were in their 20s or whatever. They didn't look like youngsters, what I mean? The Susan Bernard was a teeny bopper, but the other three looked like they were in their 20s, and they looked like they were seasoned pros at something or another. I don't know.
Yeah. So.
But Tour Satana went and did another weirder one called The Astro Zombies, and
I remember seeing that, The Astro Zombies.
John Carradine, yeah.
Yeah.
Laurie Williams did more. Susan Bernard did a few movies, but of course Russ Meyer I don't think he ever became a hardcore pornographer, but he got close.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But he never became like, Triple X. Close though. And then, they started getting like Ushi Daigard and Kitten Navidad and, other more like extreme women in his movies or whatever. And that became his style, for lack of a better. And I do remember that when video started, his movies in the earlier days, they weren't available. And I think that's because he owned his movies. And it wasn't until I think it was the early 90s when he kind of like, maybe they cut a deal with him. Then they started coming out in the stores. But I remember this movie was hard to find in the 80s. There might have been prints, or they may have showed like at cult movie shows or whatever. But I seem to remember on home video, they weren't around. Maybe no, I don't think so. Maybe when something weird or they came along, maybe that kind of was the impetus for that. But I'm pretty sure Meyer owned the rights to these movies or whatever, but it was still a well-known movie.
Yeah, so. Well, I think he just became linked with I guess you'd call it softcore.
And he got written about more, like in the 70s and 80s. A lot of these exploitation books come out, so they got written up a lot more.
Yeah, it looks like a lot of motorcycle movies started in like the
50s,
mid-60s.
Right?
They had a bunch in the. Well, there's one movie called The Uncontrollable Motorcycle, 1909.
Oh wow.
That's going back there.
But Hell's Angels on Wheels, what was it, 66 or 67?
Hell's Angels on Wheels, 67.
Because before the biker things, Corman was started doing druggy movies like The Trip and Psych Out and all that, trying to hook up with the younger generation, and then somehow or another, somebody came up with like the biker, thing. That was happening. Hell's Angels was happening.
Yeah. In
California and other parts too. So they kind of like he exploited it, which is the right word, I guess. Made a couple of a bunch of movies about it. Some with Dennis Hopper, some with Fonda, and then the most famous one is probably the one that combines the druggie with the biker. It's Easy Rider.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it looks like I'm looking at a list of movies from Wikipedia, and it looks like Motorcycle was the first
biker movie,
like wild biker movie that was basically about bikers.
And that was Meyer, right?
Yeah, that was Myers. Yeah.
And then Meyer. Al Adamson did Satan Sadist, and Corman did a lot of them. There were some low budget ones. Hellcats or, God, everybody got in it. There was a couple of them called the Miniskirt Mobs about female bikers. After this,
it looks like from 65 to 69 there were a ton of biker movies.
Different companies,
Yeah, different companies, and And,
it was like the dark side of the peace and love era, you know.
Yeah, quite true. Yeah, and that's like what do you call it? And that was it Monterey where they had the Hells Angels as
Altamont.
Altamont, that's it.
That was 1970, the Stones concert.
Yeah, but even earlier, I can remember. Oh God, I can remember there was a kid on our block who had a motorcycle. But kid, he was like 18, 19 when I was I don't know 10 or 11, and just the fact that he had a motorcycle. He was a clean-cut guy, blonde, and very quiet. But it's like he had a motorcycle, and I was like, oh. He was just terrified because, back then it was a biker, and you expected all this crap.
Yeah, well, I mean, I remember as a kid in the '60s, my dad took us out to the movies, and I do remember seeing one of these biker movies because it was an action movie. You know what I mean? My dad, okay, let's check it out. It was pretty nihilistic. It might have been Hell's Angels on Wheels. I don't know, but I do remember seeing. Like in the '60s, maybe in the '70s, mostly in the '60s, at some fast food places like pizza place, you would see like a bunch of, bikes there or whatever. You don't know if they were bikers or not, but it was always, around or whatever. And you're right, that was like the motorbike was like a rebellion symbol.
Yeah.
As well as the guitar in a way, but the bike would be more nihilistic, more anarchy, kind of like anarchist.
Yeah, more anarchy and stuff, and terrifying.
Yeah, because it was like well, the thing about the Hells Angels and the Stones was, I think the Hells Angels back then, I could be wrong, were used by L.A. bands like the Grateful Dead and all that to police their concerts, in lieu of actually having to hire the police, who would probably end up busting them for all the drugs that they were doing. So they figured if we're gonna need some policing here, we'll get the
Hells Angels.
Hells Angels. They're not gonna bust everybody for being high. You know what I mean? Yeah.
We'll use the Hells Angels. What could go wrong?
Yeah, well, with the Stones, it sure did. There's a whole a great movie about it. It was on. Actually, somebody put "Gimme Shelter" on YouTube. I don't know. It might not still be on there, but it was a good copy of it. Yeah, and I do remember watching that on television as a kid, and it was pretty shocking.
We had a real cool English teacher, Mr. Ahern, and he showed the film in class, or parts of the film in class.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was like, oh, real cool. So.
I mean, it's nice seeing the footage of the Stones recording Sticky Fingers album, wherever and stuff, but yeah, they really did kind of like. Not dwell, but they really did go. The final part of the movie is all about the stabbing of that guy, who I guess he pushed or did something to a Hell's Angel guy, and he paid the price for that.
Yeah.
For that or whatever. But
Jeez.
Yeah, it's a crazy movie, but I mean, this feels like a biker movie, but it's not a biker movie, but it feels like a biker. I guess.
Yeah.
I guess he didn't want to put 3 chicks on bikes or whatever, out of motorcycles. I don't know. So he put them in little sports cars or whatever. But
yeah, well, back then, if you had a sports car too, you were sort of.
Those are fast cars too. Those little MGs or whatever the hell they were. Yeah. I drove in one once. It went pretty fast. I mean, it was lightweight, 2-seaters a lot of times. So, but yeah, that's definitely like from an era.
Definitely. Well, also, you got to remember, back then when people wanted to, when Dad wanted to relax, he would, loosen his tie and unbutton his top button. So, relax, Dad. All right, I'm just going to loosen my tie.
It's weird. It seems like, I guess the age factor or whatever, it seems like, at one time it seems like it's a long time ago, but in reality, in the scope of mankind, it wasn't that long ago, but it just seems like everything has changed a lot in 50 years in certain respects, not human behavior and whatever, but in certain respects the culture. It seems to, I mean, I don't know how cyclical it's going to go, but back then it was kind of in a lot of ways it was a wilder time or whatever. But these guys like Meyer were pushing the envelope of what you were talking about, which is the conservatism.
Yeah.
Now it's just,
It's funny. When I was a kid, I watched I Love Lucy.
Yeah.
And first off, that show itself seemed so old and far back in the past.
Sure.
And it was only like 20 years maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And now, if you look at like Seinfeld.
Yeah, it seems old, doesn't it?
And we're talking about, and at the time, it's like, I was an adult watching Seinfeld, but now looking at it, it's even further back than I Love Lucy was. But some of the stuff doesn't seem that old, Like I still remember the big computers and the big giant cell phones and.
Yeah, the thing that freaks me out is watching stuff like The King of Queens, and everybody looks like they just stepped out today, and then all of a sudden, the three of them are out at the video store renting VHS, and I'm going like, wow, that really is old.
Yeah. When you start counting back, you're like,
it's probably 2000, which is 22 years ago, and now it's like that's just like, Stone Age.
Yeah, somebody was talking about. I remember hearing somebody talking about something in the 70s, and they said, "Yeah, that's like 50 years ago." I'm like, "It's what? 50 years ago? No."
Yeah.
And then you start counting back, you're like, holy crap, 50 years? Where'd
the time go?
Yeah. Jeez Louise.
It's funny, there's some kind of, there's probably a theory about like when you're young, how time goes slow. Then when you get to a certain point in your life, how it seems to have passed so fast,
Yeah. Yeah, I can remember the time between Thanksgiving and Christmas took forever.
Summer vacation was forever.
Yeah, some of it, yeah. It seemed as long as the school year.
And then somewhere in July, you'd start to see them doing their back-to-school sales, and you're like, oh, no. They're reminding me already that I got to go back.
Yeah, I don't want to see it. No. And then now, though, back to school is before school's out.
Oh, yeah.
Because you go to the store. Because, like, now, I was in the store looking for something for St. Patrick's Day, and they got all Easter stuff already. I'm like, wait a minute, it's not even what this was like a couple of weeks ago. It's like, it's still February. We're not even anywhere near St. Patrick's Day. They had no stuff, just all Easter stuff. It's like, I start seeing Christmas stuff in August.
Yeah, right.
I was like, what the hell? What is... Oh, whatever.
They just
I'm sounding like my crotchety old parents.
Yeah, there you go. That's what we become. That's the other thing about life, We become like crotchety old whatever, because when you see these... Well, we like our peace and quiet.
Yes, we do.
Good luck on that, everybody. But anyway. So Faster Pussycat Kill, excellent cult movie. It deserves its status as one of the classics.
Yeah.
It's on YouTube. I don't know how they got it on there. It took me a couple of tries to find it, but I did. But yeah, it's on YouTube, so you can check it out until they pull it or whatever. But nice. I'm surprised they never remade it, but I figured they probably wouldn't try because it's just too bizarre and weird. It would seem odd if they try to remake it.
And it's too of its time.
Yeah. And it would offend people, maybe. I don't know. You know how it is these days.
Yeah, that's true.
You can't offend anybody unless you're old or whatever. So anyway, we'll be back in a couple of weeks with another classic. Roddy tried to give us,
Hercules. I tried to give Hercules.
Yeah, those movies. I gotta see if I can find one where he fights like monsters or something. Those are a lot easier to take than.
Yes, they are. There's somewhere they go into all the politics and stuff.
Exactly right. You nailed it. They're all about the politics of Roman.
Yeah. So they're fighting the king, but the king's secretly doing deals with the enemy camp, and then he's in love with this, and then because the best ones are where like they're fighting monsters.
Hercules versus the Hydra, Hercules versus Moloch, Hercules versus the Cyclops, or whatever. Yeah, the ones that are kind of like Harryhausen-ish.
Yeah.
As opposed to Spartacus or Julius Caesar or Yeah, there's a term for those movies, Italian term called peplum.
Yeah,
I don't know what that means, but it's called peplum.
Well, peplum is that garment they wear. It's off the shoulder and short skirt. Some of them, though, I tell you, I was watching one, Machiste or something, where these guys, they're in the water bathing, I guess, and they come out and they have their little
it's very
Greek Roman speedos on, and then they put on their peplums, and they're really short, and I'm like, this is
it's made for a certain audience.
I think so. A different art house.
Yeah, different art house. Yeah, a certain audience of Adonis loving crowd. Yeah, there is that part of it that's a little tough, but when they fight a monster, you go, well, you got to put up with that. But look, now you got some monster. Some of them. The monster was made by, what's his face, Carlos from Baldi, who worked on E.T. So some of them are made by famous, special effects guys. There's that one Hercules, I think it's versus Medusa. I think Jane Manfield's in it, and Mickey Hargitay, maybe.
Yeah, that was her husband. I don't know if that was her husband at the time.
He was, yeah.
He was, all right.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was, but those are easier to take. Those are, like I said, Harryhausen movies, So the flexing and all the close-ups on, muscle men don't hurt as bad as, because there's a monster soon. So, but yeah, there's strange movies. The Italians made some strange movies, man. Around that was before the westerns. They kind of did hundreds of those peplums, and then they decided, hey, let's do. We got a hit with Fistful of Dollars. Let's just do spaghetti westerns. So that changed.
Yeah.
A lot of Clint Eastwood movies.
There was 3 with Clint Eastwood, right? Fistful of Dollars, A Few Dollars More, and
The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Yep. And then they were trying to get Eastwood to do Once Upon a Time in the West, but he didn't do it. So he got Charles Bronson to do it. And from what I read, Charles Bronson was actually his first choice to be the man with no name in Fistful of Dollars, but Bronson didn't want to do it. So
oh, wow.
He got him for the last one, which is a very long movie. It's a good movie, but it's a very long movie.
Yeah.
Kind of, bored me a little bit because I don't have the attention span, but nevertheless, it's a good movie. So, Clint Eastwood went back to do like Hang 'Em High or something like that, or
was the one with you just said his name,
Leone?
No,
Charles Bronson.
Yeah, with the one Bronson, was that the one where he was blowing on the harmonica?
Yeah, Jason Robards, I think, is in it.
And it matches the tune of the watch or something like that.
I think so. Yeah, I haven't watched it in a long time.
Yeah, because there's a couple. That was pretty good. There was one with Henry Fonda.
My Name Is Nobody.
Yeah, that was good too. I like that. I like those movies. They were pretty good.
The thing about the first 2 with Clint Eastwood was they were fast and to the point. When you got to the point of Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, it's a good movie. It's an excellent movie, but he started putting in subplots, and it was like, oh, the movie's not ending yet. Now I have a Civil War subplot again, so we can blow up a bridge. I was like, this seems like it's padded a bit, just to, So as much as I like it, and it's iconic, and the soundtrack is one of the greatest of all time, it's a bit long, and so is Once Upon a Time in the West. So I like the first 2 better.
There was another 2 guys.
Trinity.
Trinity.
I never saw those.
They're kind of comical and serious, and it's what it is. They're not. They're not. It's not a serious cowboy movie. There's so many jokes and stuff, but they're a hell of a lot of fun, which is one of the reasons why you
Trinity is Stole My Name, and and then there was Django, with Franco Nero. That was actually a really good one with the Gatling gun.
I saw that one.
That's a good one. It's probably better than Django Unchained, but I'm just saying. Yeah, he's got he walks around with a coffin, and he's like, why is he walking around with a coffin? When he opens the coffin, he's got a Gatling gun in there.
Oh yeah, I do remember that.
And he really goes off and starts shooting the hell out of it. That was a good one.
Yeah,
the first one. And then there was Django Does This, and Django Meets Sartana, and Django takes a dump, and Django goes to college. You know, they went on and on or whatever. But the first one was an excellent movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's always the same thing. There was another series of some other character called Sartana. Sartana meets Django meets the one-armed. Oh man, you should look them up one day. We'll do one day. Look them up. There's so many bizarre titles on. There was one we did on Slow Robot once called The Stranger and the Gunfighter, and they actually, Lee Van Cleef was in it, and they actually brought in a martial arts guy and to the West. So it was like you got the Lee Van Cleef, you got the spaghetti western, and you got the karate. So it was like, oh, okay, so now we got these two genres that are popular. Were popular anyway. No, the kung fu was starting to get popular. Spaghetti western was towards the end, and it was it's crazy stuff. But anyway, all right. Well, that's it for us. We'll find another movie for next time. And in the meantime, Roddy wants to say something to you.
Watch more B-movies.